Hello, my name is Justice, and I developed schizoaffective disorder back in 2014. Um, I had my grandmother pass away. I had my girlfriend break up with me. I was going through a little bit of trauma, and I was trying to do the best I could to be a more spiritual person after recently learning about spirituality in the upcoming like 3 months before everything kind of broke loose. I was talking with my friend and his two parents and a friend who was staying over for a few days. And they all told me that they could hear my thoughts telepathically. And I didn't really believe them at first, but after I got caught thinking inappropriate things like cursing their names with my thought patterns, that's when I started to pick up on how it's real because they would come into the bedroom and they would say, "Hey, don't think that. Like, I can hear your thoughts. You need to be careful what you're thinking." And about 3 days after they announced that they could hear my thoughts, I started having all of these different energies pulse through my body. And it was like a push and a pull, kind of like a stretch and expansion of my energetic body that was corresponding to the movements of my physical body. And I had the bright idea to turn myself in my sleep from having my head face the north to having my head face the south because I thought the energy would flow better. And when I did that, I was able to sleep throughout the night. But before I woke up in the morning, I had this long dream. And it was a gigantic white background, like an endless white space. And inside this white space was a gargantuan Ouroboros symbol. It was a big dragon. It was black, and it was circling around and eating its own tail. And I had never seen this symbol before. And come to after I had this schizoaffective psychosis, I looked up the symbol online, and I learned that it's a symbol that represents spiritual growth. So I took that to heart. But back to the story, I woke up that morning and I was getting ready for my day, and I got called out into the living room from the bedroom where I was staying, along with my friend, who's it's his house, and we went out into the living room because his parents were saying there was something interesting going on the news. And on this news broadcast, there was another Ouroboros, and the newscaster was pointing at it with a pointer stick, and she was explaining that this symbol is representative of people who are consciously evolved, and that it's our job to devour the spiritual consciousness of other people on the planet who are not choosing to evolve. And in between the mouth and the tail of this dragon, there was four flies, and this one was yellow instead of being all solid black like my dream, and it had some black features to it like scales and things like that. And I asked my friend's mother whether or not this was a real broadcast because I was thinking maybe it was a YouTube video she had pulled up or something to freak me out because I already was kind of skeptical about the whole telepathy thing. Like my roommates can hear my thoughts. This is just plain insane. And I didn't know anything about schizoaffective disorder, schizophrenia. I had done no research about mental health disorders in that time of my life. And yeah, she said it was all real. And my friend went off to college before I did because his classes started before mine. And I drank some water, I took a shower, I got ready for the day, and I went out to go catch the bus to go to another town to go to college. And when I got to the city over there, I tried to proceed through my day, but it was just totally different from my normal thought processy. For instance, like on my walk to the bus stop, I was having all these different thoughts that I was perceiving. People would call them voices, but for me, it's not auditory hallucination. It's more over um, just thought perception. I've experienced textile hallucinations, smelling hallucinations, auditory hallucinations rarely, but during that time of my life, I wasn't experiencing anything other than visual hallucinations. It was kind of like going and having a vision or having like a daydream, you could call it. And there's several points along my walk to the bus stop where I would have these guides or beings or thoughts come in, race from outside, and they would tell me things like, this is kind of like the butterfly effect, but they didn't say that during that time, but that's how I would describe it. As in, like, if I were to walk on the left side or the right side of the road, or if I took a step too far in one direction, or if I had a conversation with somebody, that everything would just change for me drastically. And I ended up taking a detour. Instead of walking straight down the road, I went down an alleyway, and I ran into about four or five friends that I knew from high school. And these guys were going up and down the street, and I started to have a complete change in my vibration. Like the the day was calm beforehand, and when I met up with them, it was like a rush of crazy, chaotic energy. And I rode this energy all the way to the bus stop, and I ended up having thoughts about how I don't like money or currency, and how it doesn't make any sense that people have to work for money to get food to take care of themselves. And I just wasn't really understanding like why we're on the earth and living inside of houses that we have to pay for and all kinds of things like that. Just getting mad about, gasoline consumption and destroying the planet through just economics, and how that's the only thing that really rules us. And I ended up throwing my bus fare into the road, and I did so because I didn't want to think that currency was something that would really affect me. But then I soon realized, I have to go get my bus fare to get to the college classes that I signed up for. And I took the bus all the way to the other town. And when I was over there at the college, that's when things started getting even stranger. I was thinking about taking off my shoes and becoming more grounded. So I walked out to this nature spot on the college, and I threw my shoes off and just like left them there on the ground. And then I went to go hang out with some friends inside of a building where they were playing some video games before their classes would start. And I was seeing all kinds of strange things, and there was all kinds of weird stuff happening. Like I had just taken a shower that day, yet there was about 20 to 30 different flies inside the room, and none of them were bothering anybody besides me. I had these flies all over my legs and all over my arms and stuff, and at a certain point, I just couldn't deal with it. I just kind of gave up and let the flies just like hang out on my body. And my friends, they noticed them and they tried to shoo them away. And that's when I got up and started playing a game of pool with one of my friends. And it was like I was having some sort of a like energetic battle between my friend, myself, and cosmic forces that have to do with past lives, and something like a grandiose scheme about how this pool game really mattered. And it was a metaphor for like things that have occurred in the past in extraterrestrial like spaces or places or something like that. I was having visuals and visions about a place in outer space, like an asteroid that was full of like conscious thoughts, and how there was like microbacterial life that lived on this asteroid, and how I wanted to communicate with it. And then I started listening to music on my phone to relax before class later that day. I bought myself out on a grassy field, and while out there, it was like the music was teaching me lessons, and it was like the most profound experience I had up to that point in my life. And I ended up going to my classes and doing my normal thing. I ended up presenting an essay about a paper that I read that was called Delusions of Grandeur, which is quite fitting for the event since this is the first day that I had experienced schizoaffective disorder in total. And while I was waiting there at the college, I ended up getting a call from my friend's parents, and they told me that I wasn't allowed to come back home that night. And this is the same family that was letting me stay at their house. And they also told me that they could telepathically hear my thoughts, and they're the same people that had me watch that broadcast. And I was like, okay, well, that's their decision. I can't go to their house and stay there, so I guess I won't. And I ended up trying to stay there for a while at the college, and then I realized that I couldn't stay there, so I left and I started to walk home. There was no bus that could take me home; it was too late, and I had no shoes on my feet. And a police officer picked me up on the side of the road while I was walking down from the college to the city, which is a pretty far walk. I'm so grateful that he picked me up that night, and he dropped me off at my friend's house. But my friend wasn't home. It was just one of his family members there, and I'm really grateful that I got to stay the night. even though my friend wasn't there. And I started having hallucinations about a dragon that was gigantic red, like a sea serpent that was like an astral entity or an astral being, moreover. And this thing was describing to me that like the heat in the house from the heater and like all of these different energies that were happening around me, like the way that the light was filtering through the shades in the room where I was sleeping, like they were all representative of something that was like a metaphor, like a fractal of nature, like coming back upon me to teach me a lesson. And then this dragon was describing to me that I needed to grab a hold of this white marble or this white moon or something. It looked like a moon to me, but this dragon was saying that it's called the New Earth. And I hadn't heard anything about the New Earth during that time. I wasn't that into spirituality, but it's definitely talked about um, with a lot of circles nowadays. And when I finally fell asleep, it'd been like a battle trying to talk with this being. But I finally did go to bed, and I woke up in the morning to my friend coming back home, and he was gonna try and take care of me that day. And he noticed that I wasn't feeling that good, and he brought me over to his girlfriend's house to try and calm me down and get me to have a good day. And while I was walking over there, I was having visual hallucinations and all kinds of different thought perceptions that were just abnormal to me, and my friend couldn't understand what it was that I was talking about. Like he tried to give me some food, and I ended up spitting it out and telling him that the food was poison. And I had this visual hallucination where I saw a giant sun in the sky, and then I saw it get taken away. And later on that day, I blacked out at my friend's girlfriend's house, and apparently I tried hitting him and like beating him up, but I'm really not a violent person at all. I don't remember this in the slightest bit. And he told me that I was telling him that my son got stolen and that he took away my son from me. And, for me, looking back on it, it's kind of crazy. It was like a self fulfilling prophecy because that exact friend, he ended up taking over my life. You could say, like, my girlfriend had left me for him, and my two children, my firstborn son and my daughter, they're now staying with him and my ex girlfriend. No hard feelings. We are all still in contact with each other, and I still see my kids now. But it's just insane how schizoaffective disorder, schizophrenia in my case, it's like a spiritual mystic journey. And I ended up uh, leaving my friend's house after we had that fight. And this is where I come to again, and I'm starting to remember things a little bit more clearly. I was walking down a road that's a little bit out of town, and I ended up going against all these different traffic signs that say, like, it's a one way, like, you can't go down here. And I was just walking, and I wasn't listening to these signs, but at the same time, in my mind, it was like, you should listen to these. These are to be obeyed, even though you're on foot. But I was like thinking, like, oh, I'm a rebel. I don't want to do that. And I ended up walking down a road into a wine vineyard. And when I was on this wine vineyard, I heard, or not heard, but perceived thoughts that were describing to me that I can't go walking out in the field of grapes because it would make me get drunk off of psychic energy or something of the sort. So I listened to that, and I ended up walking down this road, and I tried talking to a woman who was playing pool inside of her house, and that didn't go over so well, so I left. And I kept on walking down this road, and then I had this other visual hallucination where I saw an owl, and this owl was describing to me that I can't be rusty like my father, and I need to be a golden person in this lifetime. And it's kind of strange because my spiritual color is gold, and I thought that's what it had to deal with. But at the same time, she was this owl woman or owl. She was showing me this golden key, and she was saying that it's my key and I can't give it away to other people. And this owl was like a teacher, is the way that I saw it. And I ended up going into somebody's house. I wasn't thinking clearly. It was getting really late at night, and I like opened up the door and I tried to like see if I could sleep there. And she ended up calling the cops. and I just waited for them to show up because I was explaining to her, like, I don't feel good. I don't know what's happening to me. Um, I thought that everything in my reality was changing, not only for me, but for everybody. I assumed that everyone was experiencing the same consciousness as me, but they weren't. This is like a run in with schizoaffective disorder, my first day or second day of it. And I never heard of these disorders before. I never did any research about mental health before. And when the cops showed up, one of them picked me up, got me into the car, and he drove me to an emergency room because he knew that I wasn't a criminal. He knew that I wasn't having anything violent going on. There was no like bad tendencies. It's just mental health disorder that he picked up on. And when I got to the hospital, they gave me fluids and gave me something to eat. And then I ended up heading out to a mental hospital. And when I was there at the mental hospital, I spent 100 days straight inside of there, and I gained a lot of weight back. I was looking really unhealthy during that time. Uh, I tried several different medications, and none of them helped me out. And before I was discharged, somebody had the bright idea to take me over to a health clinic to try and give me a CAT scan and an MRI. And they determined that there was nothing wrong with my head, like there was no abnormal electrical disturbances that would indicate that I have got any mental health disorder like schizoaffective disorder, schizophrenia. I don't have a brain tumor. Like, just didn't make any sense. And so they ended up discharging me on my 100th day while I was still like loopy, tripping out pretty bad. And the whole entire time, I was having all kinds of crazy hallucinations and weird visions and talking to beings and entities that were around me. Um, I had lots of strange dreams while I was inside of that mental hospital. And when I got back to my local county from that mental hospital, I wasn't allowed to go back to my friend's house because they kicked me out. And I was staying at a group home for adults who have got mental health disorders. And I spent 25 days in there before I heard a voice talking to me. And this voice was explaining that I'm falling asleep. I'm not waking up right now, and that, you're going to regret it, like you're falling asleep. And when she said that to me, it was like an instant downfall in consciousness. It was like I was going at RPMs of 1,000 spins, like in a second, of my wheels turning, of my chakras and my brain, to having it all just halt and be completely still. And at that moment, I didn't hear any more voices. I didn't have any more hallucinations. I didn't have any extra perception. It was just like my ESP dropped down and died at that moment. And then I ended up living at that group home for another 3 months before I went and saw a psychiatrist, and she told me to get off of my medication to see if it would help me out because I had never had anything of the sort. She was explaining that maybe it was just drug-induced psychosis and that it would go away. But over the years, I've been hospitalized 8 more times, so that's 9 in total. And my disorder pops up and goes away at different times. Sometimes it's very strong for just a day or two. Sometimes it's very strong for a whole 3 months. And sometimes it's just not that big of a deal. Like I just learn to live with it. And currently, I'm not on medication. It's been going good for about 3 months. And I've learned to live with my schizoaffective disorder as if it's just a spiritual gift. And the visions and past life memories, they kind of just flow really fluently and frequently. I've learned how to do CE5 meditation, and I've seen over 20 different UFOs, 20 plus different occasions of them. And I've had an experience seeing extraterrestrials while camping when I was younger, before any of this ever started. And I just think that it's all a mystical experience. And I think the majority of people that have got a diagnosis of schizoaffective or schizophrenia, they're just misunderstood psychics and mystics. I think the medication is mandatory for people who don't know how to control their own energy, or when there's bad negative energies around them, it can be very helpful. But at the same time, these medications are not good for our bodies over the long periods. It does do bad damage to our neurology. It does bad damage to our livers. It does bad things to our etheric body. And so I just wanted to make this video as a startup for what I'd like to talk about further on is extraterrestrial contact, past life recall, and different things of the sort. Um, so thank you so much. This is awareness for schizoaffective disorder, schizophrenia. Thanks for watching and have a good day.